What are your funny stories from the military? In 1999 I got an official notice from the United States government telling me that I had failed to register for the draft and that I was in violation of this and that and was facing punishments of such and that I needed to remedy this as soon as possible. Except I was in the military. Had been for almost 3 years. And they didn't send the notice to my home of record or to some generic, Mr. Morgue 1234, Main Street Anytown, USA, address. The United States government sent a registered letter through the U.S. Postal Service to RM3 Joe Morgue, Combat Systems Department, USS Theodore Roosevelt, FPOAE whatever. They sent a notice to my official military mailing address using my proper rank and title telling me I had failed to register for the draft. I mean literally short of going, thank you for service but you forget to register for the draft. I'm not sure how much more irony you can achieve. Obviously, it's rather impossible to join the military without registering with the Selective Service, and I had a copy of my Selective Service letter in my military records, so it was piss easy to remedy the situation, but that doesn't change the fact that the United States government thought I was a criminal mastermind whose brilliant strategy to avoid the draft was to hide in the Radio Shack of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, as a NAVMAX administrator. It's like they think I was running the draft-dodging version of that old Key and Peele sketch where their plan to rob the bank turns out to be just getting a job there. When I was in basic training for the USAF, there was a guy in my flight who was something of a class clown. One day we were finishing lunch and were on our way out of the DFAC when he suddenly blurts out, "Man, this yogurt works miracles," and then proceeds to disappear into the bathroom for the next 15 minutes. We could never go anywhere alone, so I was left standing there waiting for him to come back out so we could rejoin everyone else outside. Romero, if you see this, I miss your funny butt. One of my friends was getting trained to operate a Hummer. The instructor told them to not press the red button on the bottom of the dashboard. Well, someone in his group pressed it as the instructor was explaining that the button zaps all the electricals, making it a piece of junk. I have a few from my time, but my father had the best. One of the funniest was his very first carrier catapult launch during World War II. He happened to be first up for launch, but he kept declining the catapult officer's signal to launch because the ship was heavily heeled over as it completed the turn into the wind. Dad just figured that wasn't right, so he confidently sat there, holding up the entire operation. After maybe the third try, when the ship had settled, he finally accepted the launch and away he went, no problem. Upon returning to the carrier, Dad was summoned to see the skipper. He was patting himself on the back as he went because he figured the captain wanted to thank him for his excellent demonstration of airmanship/seamanship when they were launching. He couldn't have been more wrong. The skipper chewed him up one side and down the other. The best part was a statement that was something like, "Lieutenant, I don't give a crap if the ship is upside down and pointed downwind. When I give an order to launch aircraft, you launch aircraft." My twin brother and I are both active Air Force, and about 15 years ago we pranked a pilot by making him think he FOD'd out one of his engines. He was TDY to Nellis where I was stationed, and we used white bunny suits when doing engine intake inspections, and his from his unit were black. I made sure the pilot saw me in the white bunny suit get into the intake, and my brother was already in the exhaust in his black suit. Once the pilot came around to the back, he jumped out and yelled, "What the frick did you fly through? A flock of pterodactyls?" The motor is FOD'd out. I was able to get from the front by just crawling through. Pilot about crapped himself thinking he really broke the plane. I then jumped out and everyone around us couldn't stop laughing. The pilot, once he regained himself, said that was the best prank he ever saw, and bought us both a beer later that night. We are at my dad's military company picnic. And his boss asked if any children hadn't had a turn on the canoes. I accepted, and he took me personally on the lake. Just as we were about to turn around for shore, he told me to switch sides with the paddles, which we both did simultaneously, causing the canoe to roll and dunked both of us into the lake. Once we had swum the canoe, he just laughs it all off and congratulated me for not panicking. We were far from the only ones who dumped the canoes that day. I was once on a canoe with 2 other guys. One guy thought it would help us row and sink if he loudly yelled, "Row," over and over. When we got back to shore we found out that the sound carried over the water really well, and half the camp was wondering, who's that yelling "row" over and over? Aircraft prop we used in basic flight had a second needle on the G-meter that always stuck at the upper limit, showing the max G-force placed on the aircraft during a sortie. buddy of mine got target fixated during a short field landing and drove that puppy in so hard it barely bounced. 7.5 GS, to be precise. Don't think that record's been broken in the 30 years since. Not by anyone who walked away, anyway. Had a truckie lock the keys to the PMVA padlock in the vehicle. He freaked out, and wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed anyway, and figured he'd fix it himself before anyone realized. So he climbs up and gets halfway through removing the bolts on the windshield when another truckie runs up and starts yelling at him, "Stop, stop, what are you doing?" Not only was the PMVA not actually locked, the back door was actually physically open, which should have been pretty visible while sitting on the hood where the truckie was removing the windshield. The hatch on top? Also unlocked. However, the way he took the bolts off the windshield messed them up and the whole vehicle had to be sent away to get fixed. I knew a sailor who stamped his mattress and dragged it up the hill to be inspected by the barracks BPO in Groton, Connecticut. End result was a mass chewing out on the weekly General Assembly on how hazing is wrong after telling us the story to uproarious laughter. I was the last batch to be examined and evaluated for compulsory service, but we didn't attend. So, I attended my medicals, physical etc., but when the final evaluation was, I received the notice to be there at 7 o'clock and I thought we'll be long finished by 11 o'clock when I was due to start my shift. The that was supposed to take a look at us arrived at 10:30. When my turn came, it was past 1300 hours, so I got into an argument with him, and after that the nurse informed me that my condition was treatable, so I left laughing and calling everyone in uniform I could see a moron. Had one recruit paying attention to a bunch of geese rather than us. Made him get up and chase them all away. As they flew in the air we made him follow them for several hundred feet to make sure they wouldn't come back. I was dying of laughter on the inside. Was never a DI, but I can pass along a classic boot camp story. I was in the Navy, and in the Navy, your final inspection as a division is before the division officer. Which is usually some junior officer puke that got assigned that job, but we didn't know any better. Anyway, before the inspection one of our RDCs, that's what we called the DI in the Navy, found a locker out of sorts and decided to beat us in our dress blues. That was not fun, let me tell you. Wool uniforms, if we lost our cover we got beat more, it was bad. Anyway, the DO rolls in for inspection, walks up to the first dude in formation, and he pukes. However, this guy was a genius, he puked down the t-shirt in his dress blues, saving the DO from getting puked on and us from getting beat even more. The division officer was so impressed at this dude's military bearing that he called the inspection right then and there. 5.0 sailors all around. We still got beat that night. But that guy was a hero. I was going through Air Force basic training and when on guard duty if an unauthorized person wanted to be led into the bunks you had to report it to your drill sergeant. Our sister flight's drill sergeant came up while I was on guard and requested entry, so I reported to my sergeant and he had me ask the other a series of questions. This particular sergeant had a bushy mustache, so one question I had to ask was, in what year was Magnum PI cancelled? He dropped out of view from the window laughing, came back up and yelled, "It was never cancelled because I am still here." It took everything I had not to crack up. So when you start basic your body doesn't know how to handle no sugar, caffeine, rigorous exercise, and sleeping schedules, so it's in shock. With this shock, crapping becomes a problem for a few. Well, every DI after the first week is required to ask around if everyone has taken a crap, and from there he assigns one recruit to track who has crapped and who has not. I crap you not, pun intended. We had one guy who would stand in the barracks at the end of the night rolling off names of people who hadn't crapped yet. Finally, we have one guy who is still on there after 2 weeks and the DI tells him to go to the doctor. The doctor gives him an get out of jail free card, essentially saying that at any point, he says the magical words, "I got a crap," and he can escape any situation. Well, recruit can't crap, we'll call him, gets the smart idea that he's going to play his new trump card as long as possible. Every time that we're getting grilled, "I gotta take a crap," comes ringing in from the back of the formation. This probably happened 6 times until our DI caught on. Finally our DI devises a plan that when recruit can't crap goes into the bathroom, he's going to have a couple of us hold on to his legs and slide him into the stall all Exorcist style. The time comes and recruit can't crap excuses himself. We all follow our DI into the bathroom and slide him under there like he's the spawn of Satan. This catches recruit can't crap by surprise. He doesn't know what the is going on, as the DI is utterly berating him about lying and using this as an excuse to sit on the toilet. Then we hear a very audible, "Oh crap," from the stall. The DI scared the recruit so much he actually took a crap right then and there. The DI made every recruit look at it, and we played taps for it as we flushed it down the toilet.